Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of VENDO Velocity. We're so glad that you decided to join us today for our podcast. This is our very first podcast of the year. I know that we had a bit of a busy January, so if this is your first time ever tuning in with us here at VENDO, then welcome. I am Delaney Del Mundo. I have been the host of the VENDO Velocity podcast for about 2 years now. It's been an awesome run in which I've been able to bring on some new teammates, existing teammates, external guests. And today I have a very special one because it is her first time on VENDO Velocity. So I am so excited to introduce a TikTok shop strategist on my team, Asia. I will turn it over to you to further introduce yourself and go through your role a little bit here at VENDO.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for the warm welcome, Delaney. I am so excited to be here. My name is Asia. I'm a strategist here at VENDO on the TikTok side of things. And really, it's front to end management of the account. So everything from shop listings, account health to affiliate outreach, campaign management, GMV max ads, and everything in between is what we do as really a team effort here at VENDO. So happy to be a part of it, happy to be on the podcast, and excited to dive into all things fulfillment, as we know there are a lot of changes there for TikTok recently.
Yes, absolutely. We wanted to give you some real-time updates on what's going on in the space because there's been so much buzz recently about what has maybe changed, what that impact has been for brands. And honestly, we freaked out a little bit when we first heard it, but after reading through a lot of the documentation, after the first 24 hours, it became clear that it's not too crazy. So we want to kind of just assuage any concerns that you might be having and really break down what some of these changes have been and will continue to be. Before that, though, as Asia talked about, VENDO Velocity focuses on all of the digital marketplaces and media channels that we here at VENDO manage. So if you're unfamiliar with VENDO, we manage marketplaces across Amazon, TikTok Shop, and Walmart.com. And we also manage full end-to-end media across retail media, all of the marketplace media, paid search and social, etc. So today, specifically, we'll be talking all things TikTok Shop. I would be remiss to not mention, though, that Asia has such a great experience and background in creator marketing that I set this up to be a fulfillment podcast only so we could bring her back another time to talk about her true expertise. I'm kidding. She decided on the topic. All of that being said, though, she will definitely need to come back because she has so much knowledge on the creator marketing space. So, Asia, why don't you just first give us a little bit of background before we get in the nitty-gritty? What have you done previously? What has your specialization really been in creator marketing, and how, since coming onto the VENDO team over the last year, has that kind of shifted, and have you seen the creator ecosystem even change?
For sure. Yeah. So I started in what I call tried and true affiliate. We're talking about like generating links for all sorts of publishers, working with media sites, things like that. So really just strengthening what the definition of affiliate is. And then from there, I quickly realized that I loved all things influencer. I feel like it just resonated with me and my interests. I always say, like, I'm a TikTok user first. I absolutely love socials. And so being able to kind of be working behind the scenes and connecting creators with the brands to see the partnerships that I love to see online was a passion, and it was a calling. So I've done a lot of things with creator marketing over the years, but I really started to solidify partnerships and what that meant when I was on the brand side and also introduced to the world of e-commerce. So through there, I have joined VENDO, and we've really, really expanded into focusing solely on TikTok Shop. And what I can say through all of my other years of creator marketing is that TikTok is a total different beast. Obviously, there's so much that we can take from the typical world of creator marketing and apply it to TikTok strategies. But really, affiliates there are doing their own thing. And so I think that through my time at VENDO, we've kind of learned how to cater to those TikTok affiliates specifically and what that means for brands in terms of being able to be successful on the platform. So I don't know that I could fit everything that I've learned about creator marketing into this spiel, but yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
There we go. And I just wanted to tee that up so that we could get a little bit of a glimpse into what round two could look like here, because as you could tell, with kind of a full understanding of creator marketing and how those trends have shifted, Asia has been able to make such a true impact to our TikTok shop team, in which, as we're seeing, there's a strong evolution happening in the creator marketing space. But it all does go back to the fundamentals on what has that looked like before, how has it changed, how are creators wanting to be incentivized now, and things like that. But let's get into our topic today, all things TikTok shop fulfillment. So Asia, why don't you just give us a little bit of a glimpse into what changed first and foremost, and then we'll dissect what are the different fulfillment methods brands should use, what our recommendations are, and things like that.
For sure. So I think everybody kind of had the same consensus when they heard about this. Like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to begin. Obviously, like you said at the beginning, we freaked out a little bit. But I think TikTok does a great job of making small operational changes and then marketing them like everything needs to be revamped. So again, like you said, we looked into it and there's really just a few operational changes that need to be tweaked in order for brands to essentially keep operating as close to as they typically would as possible. So the options are essentially seller shipping is being, as we all know, discontinued. And so for some brands, that's a date of 2/25. We've seen across some other sellers that those dates can vary through March. It really just depends. But essentially, that is a compliance date. So this is not like an optional optimization. This is a mandated change. And so the three different options that sellers now have to explore are fulfilled by TikTok, FBT, upgraded TikTok shipping, or collections by TikTok, CBT. So just to kind of give a brief overview of what the options are, we're seeing most brands move to upgraded TikTok shipping for quite a few reasons. But ultimately, it seems like it's requiring the least operational lift from sellers. So just high level, that's what we're seeing right now.
That's a great point there. I want to dissect upgraded TikTok shipping a little bit more, because previously this was named just TikTok shipping. Now they have upgraded the shipping. They're calling it upgraded TikTok shipping. Is it meant to consolidate? Is it meant to reduce costs? Give us a bit of a glimpse into how this could maybe create a smoother fulfillment experience, or what brands should be expecting in terms of friction that this new program might bring compared to seller shipping.
For sure. I think that the main goal is to host a more prime-like environment. They really want to make sure that they're cutting down on those shipping SLAs. They want to make sure that customer experiences are on the rise. I think that a lot of sellers through traditional seller shipping have had the ultimate flexibility, which is great. You know, you can select your carriers, you use your own warehouse, a lot of those things which will still be available through the upgraded TikTok shipping. But just this is TikTok's way of ensuring that everybody is compliant to all the regulations and that customers are experiencing a tailored delivery every single time that they order on the platform. So really for upgraded TikTok shipping slash TikTok shipping, they're used interchangeably. So I think that the main differences are TikTok will auto select carriers based on shipping times and cost effectiveness. But then also they're requiring sellers to print their shipping labels directly in Seller Center. So those are the two key changes moving into upgraded TikTok shipping.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think that's the latter part of what you said is what brands need to know most, because that's the fundamental change in the process, right? Is you will go into Seller Center and you will print out these labels. The information for the order still exists in Shopify. You still get the customer information. So the actual detail of the orders doesn't change in that regard. Why they're calling it upgraded TikTok shipping is just because they're offering a greater savings to the customer compared to the previous TikTok shipping rates. So that could be up to 20% depending on the zone that you're using too. And they said that we could expect greater discounts in the future. So Asia, I know that one of our first orders of business was really understanding what a margin analysis could look like for some of these brands and what the true financial impact could be. Can you shed some light on maybe what you've seen so far? Is this more favorable for brands from a P&L standpoint? Is it hit or miss, or what are the overall trends?
That's a great question. I think to be totally transparent, it has been different for every seller. We've seen some sellers where they're like, oh, these beat our typical rates, go for it. And so we're already hitting the ground running with the upgraded TikTok shipping. we've seen other sellers where for whatever reason, they're saying that these shipping rates are higher than their typical carrier rates. And so now they're exploring what the rates are for FBT as an alternative. It's just dependent on the seller and what their current fulfillment setup looks like.
Got it. Awesome. That's good to know. So, yes, if you haven't already looked at what the difference could be in your overall margin, that's what we recommend doing. Take that first step, understand the financial impact first. And then, of course, from a time and investment standpoint, really what you need to be prepared for is the ability for your logistics team to go and print those labels from TikTok Seller Center specifically. But one of the bigger challenges that we've seen just with TikTok Shop in general and using Seller Shipping Asia has really been in shop scores and fulfillment compliance and these seemingly very important things that affect your shop score and affect your overall health of your account, but almost that sometimes seem carrier dependent or that there's just less control than you'd like them to there to be without using more of this like FBT/Prime specific approach. So I know that this program, Upgraded TikTok Shipping, has led to strides when it comes to fulfillment compliance and giving brands some leeway there because TikTok Shop is going to take the responsibility for more of those things. Can you just elaborate a little bit on what some of those challenges maybe have been historically and where you'll see some improvement from a compliance standpoint?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts about the entire process change. There have been so many times where I'm sure as other sellers feel there are order cancellations or fulfillment issues or the carrier has delays, all of things that are not the seller's fault. And for whatever reason, TikTok's calculation into the shop performance score and account health and all of that takes these things into consideration when they're calculating that. And so the great part about transitioning to upgraded TikTok shipping or even FBT would be that sellers are no longer at fault for these things, meaning, like you said, Delaney, it's no longer affecting our shop score. In turn, if the shop score drops below a 3.5, that it'll no longer affect our affiliate efforts, just because all of these things are now being handled by TikTok fulfillment, logistics. And so with that change, they are essentially bearing responsibility for any delays that may or may not occur. So this is great. I know a lot of sellers struggle with carrier delays or whatever the case may be, and then struggle with their shop performance score. Like they're doing everything else right, and the one thing they can't control is bringing them down. And so that'll be a huge relief for sellers as this change goes into effect.
Absolutely. And then simultaneously, we also saw this week that a SPS appeal center has now launched in accounts as well. So again, just more visibility into some of these restrictions. Asia, why don't you talk a little bit about why SPS scores are so important and how that ultimately affects your creator marketing ecosystem on TikTok Shop too?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we've really been looking more into recently is your ability to reach affiliates dependent on your shop score. So I know that I always say that TikTok with the shop score is kind of like the teacher that never gives out 100%. You know, you can strive and strive and strive for that 5 out of 5. And the closest you'll get is 4.9. So I think a lot of sellers really, really work hard on their shop score. And really anything from a 3.5 to 6 up to those high, 4s to mid 4s is healthy. Obviously, the higher the score, the better your account health is. But I think the main call out is that making sure you don't want to drop below that 3.5, 3.4, as then you have the impacts to your affiliate center. With your shop score getting too low, it'll restrict the types of creators you can reach out to, how many creators you can reach out to. And then as your shop score continues to decrease, it can halt the affiliate access altogether. And as we know, with affiliate GMV being 70, 80, 90% affiliated to overall shop GMV, that's a recipe for disaster. So really, really exciting that we're easing up a little bit on the shop score metrics there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is so important, guys, because I think a lot of people try to jump the gun. And to Asia's point, they might say, hey, affiliates are driving 80% of GMV. That's where I'm going to put all my focus. But here at Vendo, when we're looking at an account holistically, we need to get the operational piece right first. We need to focus on the fundamentals first and put the account in a good place to where you have the ability to scale the affiliates without affecting the overall health of the account, and then leading to detriments in your conversion rate, and just how that content is performing long term. So definitely important that you are well versed in this, which is why we wanted to start with this as the part one, and then we can transition to all of the great strategy later on. But just to close the loop here, the upgraded TikTok shipping, that's primarily powered by USPS, and it does cover nationwide delivery. So again, with some of these optimizations of the carrier recommendations and things like that, they're really trying to move more towards an FBA related Prime specific approach where there's more control on TikTok Shop's side of shipping and logistics overall. But let's talk about the other two options. I think we did a great deep dive there. Let's chat through collections by TikTok. This is part of the upgraded TikTok shipping service, but what does collections by TikTok or CBT entail, Asia?
I feel like CBT is the middle child. Like it's totally overlooked, and nobody's paying a lot of attention to it. But CBT, collections by TikTok, I feel like the reason that it's not getting too much attention is it's just not practical for most sellers. I think if you are a seller where you're able to take advantage, that's amazing. But given that they're only operating within, I think it was 3 or 4 major cities or major areas, it's just not realistic for most sellers. But essentially, from my understanding, it's a sort of door-to-door pickup for fulfillment. And maybe you can elaborate, Delaney, but from, again, my understanding, it was like some of the areas were East Coast. So we were like, is that New England? Does it encompass Florida? So I think there's still some questions up in the air with CBT.
Yes, and I did see earlier this week that they finally added a guide where you could see the zip codes. So you can see the zip codes that are tied to CBT. But yes, exactly to Asia's point, that's going to be their new pickup solution. So again, how they're selling it is you get even more discounted rates than the current upgraded TikTok shipping. But of course, this is more of their door-to-door pickup service. So instead of the 20% savings, you're now seeing up to 30% or more. But it is all based on zip code. So it's either the greater LA area, the East Coast, as Asia said, which we now have a list of nearly, I think, 30 zip codes. It's a little bit more than that, actually. There's actually a decent amount of coverage on the East Coast. So in real time, there's 1,200 zip codes on the East Coast that are covered. So we could definitely add a follow-up on which states that entails. And then on top of that, the greater Texas area. So brands that will benefit from that specifically are, of course, ones that ship more regionally to those particular areas and who have warehouses in those areas. Your daily order volume does have to be greater than 50 orders within the past 30 days to be eligible, though. So if you're interested in learning more about the service and that sounds like you, then we would recommend just reviewing that list of zip codes and understanding how comprehensive that might be to the areas where the warehouses would be that you're looking for. Perfect. So that's CBT, the middle child there. Now, FBT, we get so many questions on, do I even engage in FBT? Why would I do that? Is it like FBA? Are there any added benefits? Talk to me a little bit, Asia, on how you view FBT and maybe the differences or the similarities between how TikTok Shop talks about FBT and where you see some of those benefits.
Yeah, so I think with FBT, it's an all-inclusive solution. So they're saying that they're taking care of warehousing, handling, shipping, customer service, really everything on that side of things. But I think where the main differences come in, specifically when you're talking about savings, is they were offering X number of days of free warehousing in the beginning and all of these other incentives. But really what it's coming down to for sellers with this mandatory change is whether or not it makes sense from a marginal perspective. And essentially with all of the changes that are happening, sorry, excuse me, one second.
The cold is going around Vendo. It's not great.
But essentially, sellers are being forced to kind of look at their margins, see what makes sense. If those rates with upgraded TikTok shipping really are saving them up to 20%, and if not, do they need to cut down on their product list on the platform and condense into their top sellers, send those top sellers to FBT and let them handle the rest?
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. And FBT, again, guys, very similar to FBA, in which you store that product in TikTok Shop warehouses. We just know that because it's a it's a newer product, and TikTok Shop is newer, that you're always going to have some challenges just related to storage capacity and high volume items moving during the holiday period, and really leaning on TikTok Shop for end to end logistics when it comes to that. So, of course, when you think about long term storage fees and things like that, it's just something that you have to have in mind where if you have a more volatile business or you have seasonal spikes, you need to be very precise with the inventory that you're sending in to your warehouses as well. Now, your question might be, well, what happens if I have inventory for the same product in both FBT and my own warehouses? Well, for that same SKU, what happens is the system is going to determine the best shipping path based on if there's FBT inventory, right? So if there is, then the FBT order will be filled by default through FBT. But if the FBT warehouse is out of stock, then the order is going to be fulfilled from your third party warehouse. So it's going to go through the upgraded TikTok shipping if you have that set up. So again, you can have multiple that are set up as well, but the algorithm is going to favor it differently depending on inventory, speed, etc. Asia, was there anything else specifically that you wanted to add regarding the three services, any differences, or just any recommendations for brands on how to view them?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered a lot. I think that this is something that you could look into for weeks on end and learn more and more about. But ultimately, I think what's most important is that brands are really taking a step back, looking at, like you said, creating a margin analysis, looking at your P&L and seeing what makes the most sense. We're seeing that TikTok is becoming more and more of a pay-to-play platform, and not that that's necessarily directly related to what we're talking about today, but just something to keep in mind as you're looking at what these costs are going to impact for your shop.
Absolutely. So yes, biggest thing here is don't freak out. Just familiarize yourself with upgraded TikTok shipping. Build a margin analysis. Understand the differences in the terms across all three platforms. If you have a more volatile business, if you haven't set that steady baseline, then you probably don't want to engage in FBT yet. If you have, though, then that might be a great option for you. If you have a consistent business on TikTok Shop already and you're out of the cold start phase, then FBT can offer a great savings for you, and your hands will be freed from the fulfillment piece. But all of that being said, we know that the power of TikTok also comes within the remarketing aspect, right? So just as important as logistics and speed and efficiency is also how are you able to remarket to customers? And you know that when you have the customer information, then you could do that in different ways that give you the ability to drive that loyalty for your brand. So again, that could be a great benefit of sticking with the upgraded TikTok shipping rather than moving over to FBT. It all depends on your circumstances, to Asia's point. But Asia, thank you for joining me here on VENDO Velocity. I hope you had a great time. Did you have a great time?
It was amazing.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in a couple weeks on our next episode. And if you have any further questions, feel free to drop them in the chat on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure to get back to you. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week. Talk to you soon.
Bye.